Hello, everyone. Welcome to Over the Hedge. I'm Jacob Over, and to tell you a little bit about myself, I come from New City, New York, and I've now been at Binghamton for 2 years. But still, like many of you, do not know what I want to do with my career. Here's what I know about myself: I'm a people person. I love traveling, sports, nature, and more. But I don't have it all figured out, and that's okay. This podcast is all about exploring different paths and perspectives, learning from others, and maybe finding some answers along the way. So join me as we dive into stories, insights, and advice that might just help you consider new possibilities for your own life. Cody, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Cody Cole. I'm a junior at Binghamton University. I'm studying economics, minoring in accounting, and I'm going to be interning at EY summer 2025 in tax. And a little bit about my hobbies. I love to fish, I love to hike, and I love to ride dirt bikes. I also just recently got scuba certified. That's my big brag of the year.
Awesome. And Dan, could you give us an elevator pitch to someone who doesn't know who you are?
Yes. So I'm Dan Black. I am currently the head of recruiting globally for EY based in New York, but also a proud Binghamton alumnus. Serve on the Binghamton Alumni Board as a secretary currently. Live in Westchester, New York with my family. Both my wife and my eldest son are Binghamton Bearcats. And my daughter is a junior in high school, so we may have one more on the way.
Awesome. And could you give us a background at your time at Binghamton, what you studied there, and how you progressed through your journey to get to where you are now?
Absolutely, yeah. So I was a School of Management through and through and studied accounting. I was always that guy that was good at numbers and math. So someone suggested accounting, and I thought it sounded boring, but lo and behold, I found it actually to be pretty interesting. So studied accounting. Was I played actually on the Binghamton soccer team for the first year and a half before I got injured. So that was fun. And then later went on to join a fraternity. Was very actively involved in all things social at Binghamton, which was a lot of fun. Met my wife there, which was great. And when it came time to get out into the real world, I was, as an accounting major and a interested in public accounting. I looked at the time there were big five accounting firms, that what are now the big four professional services firms. Interviewed, got no internships, which is a little heartbreaking, but then wound up getting three full-time offers for graduation, and wound up accepting my offer with EY right out of school into their financial services audit practice, what's now known as assurance. And that was literally this July. That will be 30 years ago that I started my EY career journey. Interestingly, though, like I said, I really loved audit. I didn't know what to expect. I don't think the media or maybe the entertainment business portrays accountants in the most sexy light. So I don't know what I was expecting, but I was happy to find out that most of what I was doing right out of the gate, day one at EY, in audit was working with teams, my own team, the client teams, and doing some really cool stuff. I worked on a couple of big clients, but on the smaller clients, I also got exposure to CFOs and CEOs, right out of school, first and second year, right out of school, which I thought was terrific. Learned a ton. And then 3 years into that career journey in assurance is when I had an opportunity to do a little side hustle within the firm, to help out with the recruiting organization. And I said, oh, yeah, I could do that for a couple of months. Sounds like a fun little gig. And I wound up staying in the recruitment area. And that's what I've done ever since that time. So I made a switch, which is one thing we could talk about if you want, about making career switches. And I went from being the campus recruiter for the New York office to today, I oversee all of our recruiting globally. So 140 countries, 100,000 plus hires a year, 1,200 person team. It's pretty wild. It's been quite the journey.
So, talking about that switch,
Yeah.
what did you originally take away from auditing, and why did you think a transition was best for you? And can you describe transitioning to maybe a more responsible role with as you got more leadership?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, a couple of things. Look, I had no plan. I had no plan when I graduated other than I need a job, right? So I think one of the great things that my first career, role at EY taught me was not having a plan, just being really focused on doing what you do and do it well. That's the best plan there is. Because if you do what you do and you do it well at a company like EY that actually cares about that kind of thing, other things will come your way, Jacob. And that's, I was a little nervous going to a big firm, being like a guy from a state school. I mean, we weren't the public Ivy back then, right? And so I was a little nervous about what that would look like. But I very quickly found out that if you are, if you appreciate other people's perspectives, like, you don't have to agree with them all, but if you appreciate that, you can be a good team player. If you're done with your work and, like, Cody's sitting next to you, he's not done, you help him out, right? If you have that kind of approach and that growth mindset, I'm willing to learn new and different things, man, there's just it can take you in so many places. So that's really what I got out of those first couple of years, was I had made a real great choice on employer, and I was learning all kinds of stuff about team dynamics and workplace dynamics, and it was so much more about what but more about what you were willing to learn and how you're able to apply that with the people around you. So I think, the second part of your question, like, why make the switch? Especially, I'd worked so hard. The accounting major at Binghamton is no joke. It's not for the weak-hearted, right? And I passed the CPA exam, which was also, took some doing. And so I thought, I didn't think I'd make a switch that early in my career, but my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, my Binghamton sweetheart, she said, "Look, they're offering you the chance to do something totally different from what you are qualified for and what your background is. Why not try it? They'll take you back into the assurance side if you don't like it. So it's kind of a not no risk, but low risk career move and early in your career. And you know what? Like so many other things, she was right. And I just took that opportunity to move over. Now, just the last piece of what you were saying, which is moving into human resources. So much of what I learned in audit about working with others, leading other people, because I was supervising a few people on the audit side, but also things like budgeting, project management, time management, all of those things transferred over. So I didn't lose a beat. And in fact, I went back and got my master's, which EY paid for, in human resources to get the technical piece. But as I, kind of as I progressed into bigger and bigger leadership roles, some of those fundamentals that I learned in my first couple of years have stuck with me and helped me to be successful.
And to dive a little bit further into that leadership, a big question a lot of prospective hires get is
Mm-hmm.
like, what are your greatest leadership skills? So we wanted to kind of flip it on you and say, like, ask you, what are the toughest challenges you face when leading
Yeah.
teams, and how do you work around that?
Yeah, there's a few, and I'd put them probably in two categories, guys. The first one is like just blocking and tackling, the basics of leadership. So when you lead a team as big as mine, as spread out as mine, even things like time zones and preferred work styles, totally different, right? Like, so there are days during the week that I start super early to accommodate time zones kind of across the pond. There's days I work super late to accommodate my team in China and Japan. But those, being mindful of those quote unquote little things, right? The basics is super important. So when I have a guy in China that's working for a couple of years, and I said, look, I'm sure you're always working in the evening so that the U.S. team can work in the morning, and if you're on a call together, why don't I do my evening from time to time so it can be your morning, and you can be fresh? And I tell you, he was like, the fact that I just thought about that, about what that meant to him when I scheduled a meeting in New York at 7 a.m., that was always like 8 p.m. for him, was huge. So learning those lessons about team dynamics, people's preferences. Some people, look, we're on Zoom right now. Some people, when they have calls, prefer to have calls, no video, because either they don't have a setup, like a good background, or, they were caring for the kids and they haven't gotten themselves like professionally put together. And just going on as a leader and starting a meeting right on video, that could be, something like, oh man, I didn't know it was going to be on video, and now all of a sudden you've thrown your team up. So those are the
Mm.
basics, right? And so getting those right. Holidays. So I'm Catholic, and so everyone knows when Christmas is. But what about Rosh Hashanah? Like, I have a lot of people on my team so I need to be mindful that if I'm planning something, I can't miss a holiday that's not one I celebrate if it's going to impact my team. So those are the basics. The other half of the equation are kind of the things you learn over time. And I think there's probably two things that your listeners should be mindful of. Number one is leaders come in all different shapes and sizes. And so if you try to emulate one specific person, one specific style, and it's not your endemic style, you're not going to be successful, right? So if I went out there and tried to be kind of an introverted, heavy data, type of leader where it's like, I'm going to lead with all this knowledge and this and that, I'd never be successful because that's not who I am. I'm an empath. I make my living. I make my relationships by being empathetic and understanding how other people tick and relate to each other. And so I make sure that that's a big piece of how I'm leading, right? Is bringing people together and hearing different perspectives and being empathetic and sympathetic to what I'm hearing. So that's number one is kind of being true to who your true self is. And then the second thing is along those same lines is being transparent. Not easy, especially when I was a young leader. I did not want to tell anyone when I didn't know the answer or I wasn't sure what to do or I had made a mistake. All of those things did not come easy. But I did them anyway, more often than not, because when your team realizes that you can be vulnerable, that you're not perfect, that you're feeling some of the same things that they're feeling, when they see that in their leader, they are much more willing to let you lead, as opposed to, gosh, this guy, this woman, or this guy, this leader never seems to make a mistake, never seems to be able to admit when they're wrong or if they're not feeling it. And that's, you can't make a connection with someone like that. It's very
Mm.
dehumanizing. So I think the more human and the more yourself you can be, the better leader you're going to be. Did that answer your question? All right.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Really
Cool.
emphasizing empathy. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
really cool. And I know you said that you were being transparent. Would you also say like if someone isn't doing their part or is maybe being like a little passive aggressive, what's your approach to that?
Yeah, it's a really smart question, and for someone like me who is like a bleeding heart, like I love everybody, or I try to, that is challenging. So we have a little saying here at EY that sometimes we're too EY nice. Like you want to be nice to people, and so if they're doing something that's not great, or they need to turn around or make an adjustment, it's hard for a lot of people to tell either their peers or their subordinates that they didn't do a great job on something. It's really hard. But what's worse is not telling them.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden that behavior continues and the team is suffering and the client is suffering. And so what we've been trying to do is one way we've been saying is try to replace EY nice with EY kind, right? So kindness is I work with someone and I'm going to do them the kindness, the favor to say, to put my reservations aside and tell them where I think they could be better, where I think they could shine, or where something didn't go so well. Because the kindness is they're going to see that, hopefully address it, and then move on and improve. That's where the kindness comes in. But you're right, Jack. It is hard to be that person, particularly like in my case. I have very senior team members. These are people that are in my age bracket. They've been at it for a long, long time, and we're friends. In addition to being a team, because we worked together for a long time. Telling someone like that, hey, you kind of missed the boat here, is difficult, but not doing it would be a disservice and it would be unkind to them.
Can you talk a little bit about when you're giving advice and how some people respond to the criticism or at least the feedback itself? And
Yeah.
then, like, obviously, some people are going to be more unhappy than others, and
Yeah.
others will respond better.
Yeah. Cody, it's a great question, and it's something that I keep learning about. I've kind of honed and adjusted and tweaked my approach over the years. Let me give, since this is like kind of like little bits of suggestions here. One or two tips that have really helped me over the year. Number one, when giving that kind of feedback that might be a little bit tougher to hear, I use I language more than you language. So Cody, if you're on my team and I go back and I say, hey, you didn't really finish that project the way the client wanted, and you made us miss a deadline, that's a lot worse than saying, hey, I noticed that we missed the deadline. I want our team to be successful. I want you to be successful. I saw what that meant, and I saw how busy you were, but we missed that deadline. What do you think a good way around it? Same feedback, but I language instead of you language. And now it doesn't feel to you, you tell me, it doesn't feel as personal. Like I'm not attacking you. I'm saying it's an I, it's a we instead of a you. So that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Think another thing that I do now, which I didn't do when I was a younger leader. I come in with notes and a message and the stuff that I want to say, and I don't. And I make sure and I put it on a piece of paper, and even if I'm in the room with the person, I put it right on the table so I can say, there's a couple things that I wanna convey to you, because if you don't have it written down and you just kind of go by feel, you're going to be reacting to what is probably going to be maybe a negative reaction to the person you're speaking to. And you're going to have the urge to like, all right, let me make it not as bad. Let me take some of the, and you're not going to get effective feedback across. But when I go in like, here are the 4 or 5 things I want to get across, I'm going to get them across, and then we'll spend quickly. And then we spend most of the time saying, all right, how do we, and this is tip number 3, how do we go forward? Sometimes with tough feedback, it's like, you need to do this and you got to come up with a plan. You. If I can say we, and I'm here to help you get through that. So tell me how I can help you do that. It's going to be much better received, but not having those kind of talking points, if you will, you can go off script, and generally speaking, that tends to go awry.
Thank you.
To bring it to the Binghamton community really quick.
Yeah.
So I switched into the School of Management, but a lot of kids like Cody are not in the School of Management, nor have maybe the same opportunities. So Cody, I don't know if you want to jump in, but Cody was able
Yeah.
to still like enter that realm without being in it. And I wanted to hear your perspective, Dan, if there are more barriers or any tips you'd have to maybe kids who aren't necessarily in the business realm, but are looking to get into an accounting type of role.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll give a quick background
Yeah.
quick of like my journey so far. I've been an economics major for 3 years, my whole
Mhm.
time. And then last fall, Binghamton said they were gonna have a accounting minor. Opened it up, did that, started taking my accounting classes. I took intro to financial accounting, really liked it. I was like, let me do the minor, see if I like accounting. And they have a program where you can do the master's in 3 semesters. So I'm gonna end up doing my master's and becoming a CPA. So this opportunity is like freshly available.
Mhm.
And I went from not knowing really what I wanted to do, and then in the matter of like 3 or 4 months, had an offer at EY, and I decided to take that one. And yeah,
I think, so Cody, I think your experience is not very dissimilar. Like you said, Jacob, there's people that have on the path or in the School of Management and the major, and like it's just kind of lockstep. But I think, what Cody's saying was great is being open to other options and exploring other options. So not having tunnel vision on what you think either the perfect job or career would be. And I mean, I have to say, shout out to Binghamton, whether it's Fleischman Center or School of Management Career Services, they are amazing. And not enough students go and see them early enough to say, hey, I'm studying this. I really don't know what I want to do. Can you help me, point me in the right direction? And I mean, that's how they helped me tremendously, even back in the day. This is early 90s, I was there. So I think getting an understanding of what your options are, and when you're at Binghamton, you have a huge leg up in that all the career services there are really great. So that's definitely number one. Taking the time to meet with employers, going to the employer fair and just, hearing what they're all about and getting a sense and saying, hey, I'm a fill in the blank major. Is there a place for me there? It's annoying. I remember being a student saying, I don't want to put on like a shirt and tie and go to this darn thing when I could be playing disc golf in the sunshine. But you got to go out and do it, and meet, because that's how you find out about potential opportunities. I mean, Cody, he came to Binghamton. He had no idea that right? You'd never thought this would be the path. Who knew? Right. But
yeah,
finding out and educating yourself, I think, and again, luckily, lucky item number 2, Binghamton provides that opportunity because so many employers come up, whether it's, employer info days or career fairs or any of those things, hugely beneficial and definitely worth your time. And then I would just say the last thing is, don't forget your Binghamton network. Get on LinkedIn. It's super easy. You don't have to have this like big, massive profile. And once you put into LinkedIn that you're a Binghamton student, it automatically connects you to the thousands and thousands of Binghamton alumni. You can actually do a search of Binghamton alumni. Say, okay, I want to search for other people that have my major and they're living in my, where I want to live after graduation, New York City, and what are they doing? And you can discover careers that way. And by the way, also connect with an alumnus to see if they might, be interested in meeting or having a career conversation, which I do all the time with Binghamton students.
yeah. People that I've messaged a ton of people, and not everyone responds, but
Yeah.
I've talked to countless people from EY, from other accounting firms, from
Yeah.
financial, like I've talked to investment bankers. It's very easy to network with people, and especially if they're also from Binghamton, they're definitely very willing to talk with you for the
Yeah.
most part.
Agreed. Agreed.
All right, we're running low on time. The Zoom meeting has a limit. I didn't realize. So really quickly, how do you manage work-life balance? If you could go really quickly on that.
Yeah. So this one's an easy one, actually. It's easier said than done, but set your boundaries early in your life, and that will carry you through. So I have made it when I made a commitment to my wife or my young kids at the time, or even to myself. If I make that commitment and something comes up, unless it is like an emergency, I'm like, nope, I made a commitment. Because I know a lot of people say, well, work is my main commitment. So whatever comes up, that takes precedent. Disagree. And the people that do that early in their careers are the people that now have no work-life balance. So I've said, when I make a commitment, whether it's to the office, to work, to a client, or to my son, my daughter, my wife, my church, that commitment is gold unless there is something falling down. And I have to say 95% of the time, I keep all my commitments, both personal and business, and that allows me to have the balance I'm looking for.
Can
Awesome.
you quickly, there's about a minute left. Can you go just super quickly into setting those boundaries and how to respectfully set those boundaries
Yeah.
without coming across as not taking the job itself seriously?
Yeah. Yeah. So look, be realistic about them, right? I'm not going to say, hey, I'm not available after 4 p.m. or, what have you. So being realistic,
Hmm.
this job, again, not for the faint of heart, right? I know that I'm going to work a lot. I know I'm putting in a 60 or 70-hour week most weeks. That does not mean that I can't be flexible on when those hours take place to accommodate
Hmm.
both work and life. So that's number one. Number two, this is the big one, and it's going to sound weird. I put it in the calendar. My work calendar has everything in it, every commitment, whether it's in work or out. And my
Hmm.
assistant knows, and people that can view my calendar know that if there's something blocked out, doesn't matter whether it's work or home, it's going to take a lot for me to have to change that. So if you can get in the habit of making it a seen thing, a calendar block out, you have much better success of keeping your commitments.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you
It was
so
great meeting
much.
you, Dan.
Thank you
What's your
guys. This is a
favorite
lot
type
of
of
fun. I really
potato?
enjoyed meeting you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite type of potato?
Gratin for sure.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I think we're gonna get cut off. Really
All right.
Have a
appreciate it.
good Memorial Day weekend.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for watching the third ever podcast of Over the Hedge. As an exploring student, I learned a lot from Dan and Cody. I love how Dan started out not knowing what he wanted to do, but emphasized to do as good a job as you can early on and be a team player, which helped him reap the benefits later on. And that led to his transition into his current role. I love how after he switched into that role, he realized that vulnerability can be used as a superpower for leadership. And when his employees realize that he's a human too, and he messes up, it gives them more confidence to be human, and they will likely want to do a better job for him. Dan also emphasized not to copy anyone else's leadership. He knew he was an empath and used that to his advantage. In his example with working with employees over the seas, and he would be mindful of their time zone. That was something that stuck out to me. And lastly, I want to say thank you to Cody as well. He's an example of someone who's not in the School of Management and was able to transition into the business realm. And I like how Dan echoed that it's okay not to know exactly what you want to do, but you should be utilizing your campus resources, talking to employers, LinkedIn, and utilizing your Binghamton network. So, all in all, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Cody. It's okay if you don't know what you want to do. Oh, and also, I like how Dan talked about setting boundaries early on for your work-life balance. Be realistic about them. Put everything in your calendar. But all in all, thank you to both of them, and I hope this helped you guys in some way. Thank you.